Jignesh can start. Jignesh.
Trupti has been seen. So, have you given a countdown, Anmol?
Yes, I think he is given.
Yeah. So I'll start. Actually, there was a phone call which had come. A very good morning to all my dear MOS members and the ophthalmic fraternity all over India who have joined on the YouTube, Facebook, and the webcast platform. We have a very, very renowned person today. He is Dr. Bharatbhai Shah, who has joined, and he has taken time out for Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society due to good contacts with Dr. Kulin Kothari, sir. We are extremely grateful, sir, and I welcome you on behalf of the Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society. Over to you, Dr. Kulin Kothari, for your opening remarks, sir, and then the short intro by Dr. Trupti Kadam. Yeah.
Jignesh, thank you so much. I think this is going to be a brilliant Sunday morning for all of us today. Bharatbhai is a very, very dear personal friend of mine for last more than 3 decades. And apart from his excellent professional acumen, he's such a wonderful human being. And I have been a beneficiary of his friendship, not only on personal or not only on usual levels, but in receiving some of his best writings, best books he publishes once in a year on an average. And thank you, Bharatbhai, for that. I will not introduce you formally. That is, Dr. Trupti is going to do that. And he is, apart from a good human being and good professional, is such a articulate speaker that he makes all complex and difficult things look very simple. And that is the reason I've requested him to come second time in last 1.5 years. Bharatbhai, thank you so much again. And he will make everything fundamental and basic so simple. And Bharatbhai, we have a mixed crowd of people. Doctors in general, as you probably know, are not good investors. They are not good. They may be good surgeons and clinicians, but they are not. They don't know how to deal with their money very well. Maybe 10% or 15% of them may be reasonably acceptably okay, but maybe 50-60% of people, they are not very good. So they need to understand about fundamentals of investing and what are asset classes and asset allocation, how we should think about it, and things, allied things related to that. I think I'll end here and request Dr. Trupti to formally introduce our guest speaker today.
Thank you, Colin.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all the MOS members. A warm welcome to everyone, as well as our non-ophthalmics members too. So we welcome Bharat Shah, sir. He is based at Mumbai. He's practicing as a CA past 30 years, and he is the executive director of
Sorry to interrupt, Trupti. Sorry to interrupt. He is not a practicing chartered accountant. He is executive director of an ASK group.
That's what I said. I have given that. He's the background. It's being there in the. Sorry.
He's chartered accountant by qualification. Yes.
Yeah. He's chartered accountant but he is the executive director of ASK group, which is based at Mumbai. And he is an IIM graduate from Calcutta with a topper degree in finance. He has nearly 30 years of experience in the Indian capital market with deep interference in Indian corporate world. He represents a comprehensive insight in Indian capital market, both equity and fixed income, with strong emphasis on the bottom-up investment physiology. He has a considerable understanding of global businesses, and stock picking is a special strength. The investment physiology emphasizes buying only quality businesses enjoying superior growth, but at reasonable valuation. As a director, he provides strategic guidance and support to the CEO in managing their respective businesses, but is intimately involved with and supervises the investment management businesses of the group. And this will include real estate, wealth advisory, and private equity. He's passionate about investing and all the things to go with. He has represented both at the national and the international fora. He is authored a book entitled Long-Term Value and Wealth Creation for Equity Investing, that is observation, ideas, and reflection. Has written several articles on investments in the top Indian business magazines and has been a speaker on various forums. He's been invited in Boston in October 2009 as a speaker, and the emerging event that is in Chicago, USA in May 2010. He has features in the investment series, that is the Wizards of Dalal Street and the Classroom. He has also featured in a book, Indian's Money Monarch, which is a 30-page chapter on him. His interest includes reading, traveling, and classic music. In 2014, he was featured by the Forbes Indian as a member of 20 Market Wizards. And among his external recognition, that is for a period of 5 years, which ended in December 31st, 2015, 3 of his investment strategy have features among the 10 baskets of domestic and offshore Indian funds. He has been ranked as #1 among the Indian funds by the Morningstar and also being given as the 5-star rating for a period of 4 years, that is December 2015. The 3 of his investment strategy have features among the top 10 baskets of domestic and offshore Indian funds. So let's wait and hear him and hear for his wise pearls investment. We invite Bharat Shah, sir.
Yeah.
Bharat bhai, before you start, though it is mentioned 40 minutes, but if you exceed the time today, being Sunday morning, few minutes here, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah,
absolutely, sir.
We
are there to hear you.
We want to make the best of your presence here, and time is not the issue at all.
ભરતભાઈ હજી એક વસ્તુ, આપણા જે ઓડિયન્સ છે ને, they are from the lower this thing in the financial literacy part. This is a literacy series that we have conducted, and that is how Kulin bhai has said that Bharat bhai is going to cover the asset allocation and this today. So તમે એ level target audience આપણું એવું છે. So please take that into consideration, cover all that also, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Please
I'll try to keep it as simple and relevant as possible.
Yes.
Finance, at best of the times, is still an involved subject, but I'll try to keep it at an appropriate plank, as it will be suitable to the audience.
Sure, sir.
So, can I begin now?
Yeah, please. Please.
Yeah. So, good morning on a Sunday morning to everybody. Together on a Sunday to listen to finance or a discussion on investment should be special. Special for me, for sure, because this is one of the rare Sundays when I would engage into discussion on a kind of a formal forum like this. My effort would be to convince everybody that finance is a very integral and very important part of all that you do. And investment is a very special area which should be of relevance to everybody. Whether you happen to be an ophthalmologist or you happen to be a nuclear scientist, or whether you happen to be any other profession. a reasonable understanding of finance, principles of finance, and ability to appreciate that why investment is a special area of importance to everybody. Unfortunately, without that being taken into adequate consideration from earlier stage of life, it results into outcomes which can be less than gratifying if these ideas are not recognized in advance or sufficiently in advance. But never it is too late to begin on an investment journey. Of course, when you begin on it early enough, the outcomes over a period of time are hugely gratifying if it is done well, which basically kicks in from the power of compounding, and it is something I'm going to talk about in a while. So let me give a broad outline as to what I propose to talk about. The first is on asset allocation and why it is vital and what one needs to keep in mind. Secondly, to talk about what investing is, as well as what it is not. It is important to understand what it is not, because investing is not generality, it is specificity, and the power of investing comes more from exclusion rather than inclusion. Inclusion, of course, is a part of social and political lexicon, but the investing world really thrives on the power of exclusion. So I like to talk about what investing is and some of the popular ideas about investing, but which it is not. Linked to that, I would like to talk about the power of compounding, that is, power to create disproportionate outcome from what appears to be a series of small steps. That while returns is something that is appreciated by everybody, and the tangibility of that outcome is attractive to everybody, investing is really more about the risk management. That fundamental ideas behind investing are simple, and yet it is not easy to practice it. So investing remains simple, but it is not easy. The other aspect that I would like to kind of elaborate a bit upon everyone's mind is that markets hold no duty towards investors. What investors have to achieve and what they have to do for themselves, it all has to be done by them. Markets are not in a business of gratifying desires of participants. And it is important, very critical subject area within investment, and I'll cover that towards the end. And before I conclude, I would like to make a brief mention, which is a technical subject, but what really creates value in an investment. And that apart from individual investment, why the approach is to be at a portfolio level, at an aggregate portfolio level. Before finally coming to the finale in terms of that investing, when we manage money for others, I believe is a trusteeship responsibility, and I hold that idea very dearly to my heart. And final finale comments, in my opinion, we are at a cusp of one of the greatest opportunities before this country, her economy, her businesses, and entrepreneurs, and in turn for the patient and wise long-term investors. So this is the broad outline of what I intend to talk about, and let me dwell upon each of these areas one by one. If I can see at least face of somebody, it will be good, because otherwise I'm getting an impression of staring at a blank dark screen. So if at least somebody's face is put the video mode on, it will make it a little easier for me to talk. Kulin bhai, or anybody, if somebody can put the video on, then at least I know that I'm talking to somebody.
Five people, yes. So technically, who is Anmol or somebody can put? Can we put some of the audiences on the screen? Is it possible to put the audiences on the screen? Anmol is in charge, right, Jignesh?
હા. આપણે શું કરવું પડશે? બધાને ઝૂમ લિંક મોકલવી પડે સર. આપણે ભલે ઓડિયન્સ લિંક મોકલી.
At least I see both.
બધું અવાજ ચાલુ થઈ જશે અહીંયા આવવાનું. કોઈ વિડિયો ઓન કરે આ કરે એમને ડિસ્ટર્બ થઈ જાય.
અચ્છા,
એટલે આપણે આ ફોર્મેટ આપણે MOS માટે ફોલો કરીએ સર.
No, at least some of us, at least, you know. So,
now I can see three of you, so that makes it convenient and comfortable. Now I see Kulin bhai sitting before his glorious library, which I have seen.
yeah.
So let me start with the asset allocation. And principally, if we look at it, there are basically only 4 asset classes. There are 2 physical assets, gold and real estate. And then there are 2 financial assets, which is fixed income, which can be debt-oriented fixed income mutual funds or government bonds or fixed deposits or whatever. And the other financial asset is the equity investments, which in turn includes public markets, venture capital, private equity, and all that goes with it. Basically, the risk equity investments. And then I would like to link with the idea that equity is actually nothing but a business. It is equity investing is nothing if it is not business-like. And therefore, businesses and equity investing both are like flip sides of the same coin. Now, 2 important ideas I thought on asset classes. One, we should focus not on the gross returns that an asset class earns, but actually the net returns. When you talk about the net returns, there are 3 enemies which deduct themselves from the gross returns. There is a tax when you sell a particular asset. Then there is inflation, which is a common enemy across all the asset classes. Tax treatment may vary from asset class to asset class. And thirdly, there are specific costs which you incur in order to invest into or maintain or for exiting a particular asset. Therefore, the returns that you talk about are the returns net of these 3 enemies and not the gross returns. Gross returns is not a very useful way to look at deciding which asset to participate in. Now, I would like to submit that basically both the physical assets and one financial asset, fixed income, fundamentally have very little potential to create value once you take into account the 3 enemies that I talked about. Real estate is a very cost-intensive activity. When you purchase, when you sell, you have to maintain various charges that you pay monthly or annually. And therefore, there are reasonably high amount of cost that you incur in order to invest or remaining invested into that asset class. Fixed income, if you buy a fixed deposit, cost is basically zero. If you buy into fixed income driven mutual funds, there is a fee and some amount of cost that you pay, but still relatively low cost. In equities, if you are a long-term investor, then the costs are kind of low. If you are a trader, and if you are like a churner of the portfolio, of course, the cost can be high. And finally, gold is virtually very little cost, either for buying or for selling. So it is, from a cost perspective, it is basically zero. So from a cost perspective, gold is zero. Real estate is the worst asset, and fixed income and equity kind of become somewhere in between, but more towards very low cost, especially if you're a long-term investor. The inflation is a common enemy, and the taxation would vary across the asset classes. Now, when you, from a tax perspective, the worst asset class is the fixed income, whether a fixed deposit or buying into some fixed income mutual fund or some such product. And from a tax perspective, the most efficient asset is equity investing. And especially if you're a long-term holder, and till you're sold, you really pay no tax. And if you do sell at some stage, the long-term or the short-term taxes are still far more efficient compared to all other asset classes. Though they become higher than they used to be. Earlier, long-term gains were zero. Now they become 10%. And short-term income, short-term capital gains tax was 10%. Now it has become 15%. But these are still much lower numbers than all the other asset classes that I talked about. Now, when you take into account this, and that the cost-wise real estate is most inefficient, from a tax perspective, most inefficient is fixed income. Inflation, of course, hurts every asset class in the same uniform way. When you deduct all the three, then you find that fixed income practically has no chance of earning anything net of these three costs. Anything more than little higher than zero, maybe zero, or even negative. Real estate, depending upon the asset chosen and the price paid, and even if it is efficiently done, the returns are unlikely to be much better than just a little more than zero. So that is in all probability, the best return that you can hope to get. If it is a residential asset, then the returns will be actually zero or negative, net of the three deductions. If it is a commercial estate, then it can be reasonable single-digit kind of a number, low single-digit, but maybe 2%, maybe 3%, but not more than that. Gold is not an asset class at all, because gold has no economic value. And by definition, if it doesn't have any economic value, it cannot have any economic returns. And therefore, only value of the gold is actually in the eyes of the beholder. Beyond that, value that you hold for, say, gold or for diamonds is in your eyes as a beholder of those products. There is no real economic value that it can actually have any economic returns as a possibility. So gold is basically pure consumption, and net returns as the economy is more efficiently managed as it is now, both on a fiscal deficit as well as on the current account deficit. Gold returns, I'm afraid, would be negative over a period of time. In the past, gold is on returns because the rupee is chronically depreciated, and that is added to the returns. Fiscal mismanagement in the past has ensured high inflation, and therefore that is added to the nominal returns of the gold. But as both these issues have been managed much better in last few years that we have seen, where there is a systematic and disciplined approach to manage both fiscal and the current account side. Inflation is structurally been tamed, cost of capital has been brought down, and our current account we are progressing very well, and therefore rupee real depreciation is likely to be low, and therefore net of the three deductions, gold is unlikely to make a positive return. Therefore, only asset class out of the four, when you deduct the three deductions that I may talked about, cost, inflation, and taxation, only asset class which has a potential to make a double-digit return, not just single-digit return, is equity investing. But that's not a birthright. And it's not as if markets are obliged to earn you that returns simply because you participate in the equity investing. And as I said at the beginning in the outline, I'll talk about this subject in little more depth towards the end, that equity investing returns have to be earned. It is not an automatic benediction of God from above, that you invest into markets and la behold, it just converts into wealth. It doesn't happen that. But that is the only asset class which has a real potential, if handled well, to earn net positive double-digit compounded returns of a kind over a period of time. This is something which is very, very important to understand. Therefore, traditionally, most people who are not reasonably or adequately kind of equipped or mentally trained to look at real picture of the asset classes, unfortunately tend to invest based on a generality. So fear of volatility of equity markets makes people invest into fixed income, but it turns it's a treadmill. More you run, still you remain the same. And actually, after the stage, it will make you lose your breath, and it actually may retard you. But people do not fully appreciate or understand equity, and therefore they shy away from the volatility, which is an integral part of equity, and therefore get into the clutches of the fixed income unduly. Some amount of fixed income may be necessary in one's asset allocation plan, but only that much. Only that much which can kind of reasonably take care of your lifestyle, so that there is an amount lying in, even if it is earning low return, that return basically protects your lifestyle and your station of life and your need and expenses, taking into account future as well. Maybe some more amount you may want to keep it as a contingency, but beyond that, any amount further committed to fixed income is actually an expression of not having love for one's own money, because by definition, the more you run on that path, more you will be at the same place or actually behind. Real estate in the past earned returns for a variety of reasons, partly because our economy was inefficient, partly because there was a lot of non-transparency, and partly because there was a lot of illicit or less than legal or corrupt money circulating into real estate as well as in gold. And therefore, part of the returns it earned simply was to find an outlet for illicit or wrong kind of money generated into the system. And therefore, since there was a large amount of such money generated into the system, which was illicit, non-transparent, if not downright illegal, that money, a large chunk of that money traditionally went into real estate and gold. And that is why real estate benefited from it. But increasingly, as the real estate is becoming a more transparent asset, and Real Estate Regulation Act, which got promulgated about 5 or 6 years back, is revolutionizing that area. Increasingly, cash element is dwindling. Ability of people to do less than fair transactions is diminishing, and generally watch on that is high. And ability of people to evade scrutiny by non-registering agreements or benami and other things is all thing of the past. Essentially, real estate is becoming less and less an investment asset and purely only a consumption asset, whether it's a home, whether it's an office or a clinic, or as a factory or in a commercial place. Therefore, real estate also, residential safely you can say, is an investment, will earn negative returns, net of the 3 deductions. Is a commercial asset, maybe 1%, 2%, 3%, and if it is a bad one, then even 0 and negative. Therefore, only real asset which can take you ahead, but there is no guarantee of it, and I'll talk about it in at some stage later. But that is the only asset class which is a potential to take you ahead and create real wealth rather than illusion or a deception of wealth being created. Therefore, when you put crores of money into fixed deposits, it gives you a feeling that after the year it is gone up by 4 or 5%. But that is a bit of an illusion based on looking at the gross returns of an asset class and not really the net returns. Because inflation in any case is crept in whether you want it or not. And if fixed deposit is earned you 4%, but inflation is taken away 5%, then really you are -1 at that stage itself. And then on that 4% you pay taxation. So that -1 further becomes a bigger minus, and so. Therefore, an intelligent and agile understanding of one's own financial interest, an ability to tame fears of the mind and focusing on what is good for you, an ability to take that long-term view into account, ability to deal and tolerate volatility of the markets, which you can't wish away. If you are able to do all of that, then equity investing is the only asset class out of the 4, which is potential, ability, and the real chance to create net, not just the gross, double-digit, long-term compounding returns over a period of time. Compounding is a very powerful idea, and I'll talk about it just in part. The second point I wanted to bring about is that equity investing is nothing but a business. Only 2 things really create value in an economic endeavor. Either you build a business which is valuable and a business which is a character and strength within to create lasting, predictable, superior, and simple to comprehend kind of value. As a medical professional, since I assume most of the people here are medical professionals, that ability to build wealth is somewhat limited. It is more ability to create higher income. It is ability to make meaningfully large income than most other segments of society, like lawyers, similar way, where high fees earned both by medical professionals or legal professionals will be a source of high income. But high income is not necessarily high wealth. Only two asset classes, either running a business which is valuable or investing into such valuable businesses, which is what equity investing is all about, are the only two real ways to create wealth. Therefore, equity investing is nothing if it is not business-like. All the attributes, all the dimensions that are behind what creates a successful, superior, value-creating, durable business over a period of time, exactly the same attributes are at the root of what creates value in equity investing. And therefore, only these two assets really create economic value and wealth. And I'm drawing very clear distinction between wealth and income, including wealth and the high income. That brings me to the third area, that what investing is. Before I go to the fourth area, what investing is not. First and foremost, very clearly, what investing is all about is the wealth creation. The end purpose, everything that investing is about is to create wealth. And it is about creating outsized outcomes and consequences than what you begin with at the beginning of the journey. An ability to create an outcome which is so disproportionately large compared to what you may have begun with and may have added to over a period of time, that is the true power of any equity investing. Investing is the only way in which you create wealth out of income, and you can create wealth out of wealth. And both the dimensions are very vital. If you generate meaningfully high income, and if you are able to meaningfully keep the expenses at a reasonable level compared to that income, that means you have meaningfully high potential to create savings pool. That savings pool can be converted into wealth. And that is the power of investing. The other power of investing is to create wealth out of the wealth. There are many businessmen who are excellent at creating value in the businesses, who may build great businesses, who may create great value out of those businesses. But ability to create wealth out of what is already built wealth is a special ability of basically investing again. And therefore, so many terrific businessmen who have great record of creating value in the economic activity that they may have indulged in, if they have to compound the wealth from their own, they again need the support and the power of investing. Therefore, investing, the true and the most distinguished attribute of investing is its ability to create wealth out of the income, which is a huge, huge outcome to be achieved, and the special ability to create wealth out of the wealth itself. And therefore, truly, in some sense, investing perhaps is the only intelligent, risk controlled, longevity driven way to keep getting ahead in the game time after time after time. Challenges would come, volatility will come, at times violence will come in the markets, but that's part of the sideshow. That's the nature of the market. If you can temper your mind to deal with that volatility and violence, then truly investing into quality businesses is a phenomenal way to create wealth of a kind, which is unmatched by most of the sources of doing so. Investing is both art and science. There is a part of investing which looks like science, and then there is another part of investing which actually mimics itself like an art. Art is not mathematics. It's an idea. It is aesthetics. It's an expression of your innate heart. And the art can express the inner genius in a certain way in the hands of talented artists. A great physicist like Newton or Einstein, it thrives on the power of science, power of genius, of some truly evolved intellect. And therefore, investing requires an amalgamation of both. It requires a bit of a science, and it requires a whole lot of art. Fortunately, it doesn't require genius of the kind of Einstein or of the kind of Newton, because if it called for that kind of a genius, then many of us, certainly not me, would have been in a position to be an investor. And therefore, thankfully, investing calls for reasonable amount of gray cells, but it doesn't call for being a genius like Einstein. And therefore, that gives a hope to a lot of people like us to be able to persist in the game. I would say it is more of an art than what it is a science. There is a part which is mathematics, which is computation, which is detailing, but there is a greater part which is gazing into future, perception, comprehension of complex ideas, and many of these, including judging the character of the management of the business that you invest in, judging the character of the business itself that you invest in. Many of these partake characteristics of art. There is a science, but there is much more of an art. And it is that part, the art part, which makes investing very unique branch of knowledge. In some sense, I would say investing is a lattice work, a kind of an interacting multifold branches of knowledge. It partakes from psychology, it partakes from physics, it derives its understanding from history, because without a good understanding of history, many ideas in investing may be less than efficient. Even literature has a role to play, because literature calms down your mind rather than make you reactive. And to that extent, investing requires a tempered and calm mind. Philosophy, spirituality have great element to contribute to good investing, because without that, mind which is able to rise above small things and minutiae or petty things into the larger arena and the purpose of life, many things in investing may not really achieve what you seek to achieve. Therefore, there is history, there is physics, there is biology, and the principles of adaptation that biology teaches all of us, that how Darwin taught us about survival by not being necessarily the most intelligent, but by being most adaptable. That intelligent adaptability and intelligent flexibility to be able to get ahead despite challenges, or the ideas drawn from spirituality, from history, from literature, and many, many other things, including mathematics. In many ways, investing is a lattice hook. It culminates in a ladder-like form, but ladder which is not rising from in a vertical way from last rung to the upper rung. It's like a crossword grid where there are multiple horizontal and vertical kind of grids which are rising in many directions. Each individual piece of understanding helps you in building overall architecture better. And when you build enough pieces of knowledge and understanding on enough branches of knowledge, you are able to get to that much better investor than what otherwise you might have. So investing is an art and it is also a science. What investing is not. It certainly is not entirely serendipity. It is not chance. It is not luck. And it certainly is not speculation and gambling. Investing is not serendipity, an inspired intuition. Inspired intuition has a great role to play in investing, but it is not merely just an intuition. It certainly is not a chance, while at the same time there is some level of chance in every endeavor of the life. Everything that we do has some level of chance. Nothing is a certainty in a mathematical way in the life, in any economic, social, or any endeavors of the life. So there is some level of chance, but over long run, when you play by the rules and when you play by what you have to do right, investing is far more of what is to evolve as a definitiveness than relatively it is a chance. It certainly is not a happenstance, an accidental outcome. It certainly is not a luck that falls into you like a windfall lottery. It certainly is not gambling and speculation. And therefore, investing is to be treated with a due degree of dignity, discipline, and respect it deserves. And that, I would say, applies to your own money. You are a trustee of your own money, and you have no right to ill-treat your own money. Even if it is your own money, you can't throw it down the drain by taking ill-considered, poorly conceived, or ill-executed, or badly thought-through kind of ideas. You have no right to do that for your own money either. Investing is not even about time. A lot of time people think, is this the best time to invest? This is a question 95 times out of 100 times when I interact with people comes up before me. But investing is not about time. It is about long term. It is not about even predicting indices. Just one second. Sorry. Investing is not about predicting indices, where indices are going to be, and accordingly benefiting from it. It is certainly not tracking indices and benefiting whether markets will go up or down. It is not about macro generalities, what Biden will do or fail to do, whether American Fed will raise the interest rate or not, and when, how the devious China will behave. It is not about even macroeconomics of our own country, though macroeconomics in some sense does have connect with the how the businesses will perform over a period of time. But investing is not about generality of macroeconomics in a broad sense of the word. And investing is not riding some trend, some fashion, some theme, some being popular at a point of time. And la behold, the rising waters will lift up your boat. It is not an accident like that. That you just spot a train, hitchhike the boat, which is benefiting from that train, and the rising tide will lift your boat, and therefore you will gain. It doesn't work that way. So there is some amount of chance. There is some amount of probability. But when you are investing craft, your investing methods, your investing approach is sound, there is preponderantly higher percentage of good outcomes compared to some outcomes which are not as good and some which are inferior. Therefore, investing remains a probability always. It is not a mathematical certainty of 1 or 0. It is not a binary science. It is a shade of gray in between. And the art of investing is basically to bring it closer to 1 rather than lesser than half, because anything midpoint and below makes it unviable activity, because half the thing will be below, then real outcome is close to 0. And if more than half is below what you desire, then the net outcome is likely to be negative. Therefore, probability has to be more than half in a pendulum of 0 to 1 that you work on. But it is the ability of that art to take it much above half mark, taking it closer to 70 or 75 or 80, and therefore negative outcome to more like 25 or 20 or 15 in 100. That is what the art and science of investing is all about, the real art. It is art of probability, but when probability is practiced like a good craft, and the probability becomes intelligent, more predictable, more confidence it can inspire. And that exactly is what investing is about. It's not a mathematical certainty, but nothing in life is a mathematical certainty. But when played with intelligence, played with aplomb, played with discipline, played with wisdom, the probability becomes materially superior and higher than the probability of average or below average kind of an outcome. This is what investing actually is all about. It is a game of not a chance or a luck, but it's a game of probability. And there is a huge difference between in game of intelligent probability compared to a game of a lottery or a game of a chance or a game of a happenstance, which is how many times people conceive investing. Many times people think of investing as a windfall kind of a gain, that sometimes you get lucky that you got into a right place at the right time and la behold, something went up and you made a lot of money. It is not. And in fact, windfall gains, psychology shows, mostly are dissipated and thrown away. Person who lends with windfall gains actually becomes poorer after a while than what he began with before getting the windfall gains, because psychologically it weakens the strength of doing the hard work and doing the right work. And therefore the net outcome is likely to be actually lower even with a windfall gain in probably 95, 97, 98 out of 100 people who just treat it as a chance. The fifth part the power of compounding, and which is at the root of all that is there in any economic activity, and even in life, even in the way we deal with our own personality, in the way we deal with our own family. And therefore, all that applies to your own, all that applies to your own family, all that applies to your society as a contribution, and all that applies to your self-economic aspiration of building wealth of a kind. All of that stems from power of compound. Our values, what we hold dear to our heart, what we are passionate about, they kind of define what drives us. Because what we really are passionate about, what are our core values, they really define likely gravitation force of where life will be headed. The kind of objectives will be is what is a beacon you are hunting for. Therefore, your values, your passion, what you hold dear to your heart is likely to define what is it that you seek in life. That what you seek in life really stems from actions that you make, an ability of yours to make meaningful actions for what you are seeking to attain. That requires important choices to be made in life. And those choices, when applied with a relentlessness, with discipline, over a long period of time, with consistency, these, then they become habits. They become part of you. And without they becoming part of you, you can't really get that power of compounding. Therefore, values define your objectives. Objectives, in order to become outcomes, need purposive actions. Those purposive actions stem from the choices that you make. Those choices, when applied and implemented with consistency, with discipline, with relentlessness over a long period of time, they become habits. But habits cut both ways. Good habits compound, and the bad ones also compound. If you keep eating oily food, and if you keep eating bad cholesterol food every single day, then that habit will also compound and will cause consequences. Equally, if you save intelligently and keep doing it time after time, and keep investing time after time intelligently and with awareness, and you keep doing it not just one time, but time after time, over a period of time, with discipline, whether markets at a point of time threaten you, or when markets seem to gratify you, it is making those good choices, implemented with rigor, done with discipline, compounded over a long period of time, that the power of compounding kicks in. 1 rupee, when compounded at 14.7%, 1 humble rupee at 14.7%, per annum compounded over a 50-year, becomes about 1,000 times. 1,000 rupees. When the same humble rupee is compounded for another 50 years, that outcome becomes almost close to 1 million rupees. And when that outcome is compounded for another 50 years, it becomes closer to 1 billion rupees. This is the power of compounding. Small, incremental. Each individual step, which may look insignificant in itself, but done with relentless over a long period of time, with missionary kind of a zeal, with a huge amount of commitment. Series of small steps, each step in itself looking or seemingly looking insignificant, but done over long run, when it becomes a giant outcome. That is the power of compounding. When you invest into an Asian Paints, a business which looks simple and not very technologically, not very complicated, very simple activity, simple business, but a great management, great value created in a business with relentless discipline and character. 1 rupee invested into Asian Paints 30 years back has added up today more than 1,000 times. Apart from it value compounding to more than 1,000 times, every year it is added to you dividends, more than 50% of the profits of the firm year after year, where dividend itself is larger than initial capital of 1 rupee that you put in after a few years, and that itself compounds again in a similar way. When you put into a high quality business, great character and great capability, both of a management, in a company like Bajaj Finance, where a rupee in a 12 years or about 11 years converts into 225 times. If it compounds at the same rate in the next 10 or 12 years, the same 225 rupees becomes some 50,000 times. So something, a simple rupee, a humble rupee, can go up to some 50,000 times in a matter of 25 odd years in a giant and business of a great character like Bajaj Finance. Not everything necessarily will be of that kind, but it doesn't need to be also. Even if we get an outcome which is materially modest compared to that 1,000 times in 50 years, even if we get it 500 times, it is still a very worthy and very powerful idea to get. And therefore, the true power of investing comes from the power of compounding. But as I mentioned, power of compounding applies not just in investing, it applies in life. It applies in everything that we do. It applies to our family, our own character. And it applies to good things that we do as well as to the bad things that we do. Therefore, the power of compounding is something which is central to what all good investing is about. Coming to the other ideas, I mentioned that investing is simple, but it is not easy. It is simple because the fundamental ideas of investing are not very different. Ultimately, investing is about finding good businesses which are run by people of integrity, character, and capability, that these businesses enjoy fundamentally a large size of opportunity so that they can grow, so that they can acquire that compounding character that I talked about. Because ultimately growth results in compounding. And therefore businesses need a large size of opportunity in order to grow. And that growth results into the compounding. And that compounding is enhanced when the character of the growth is superior. Without making it very economics and investing jargon oriented, quality of growth is a very central idea in good investing. When we talk about quality of growth, in very simple terms, if I have to explain, it is such character of the business that outcomes become disproportionately larger than the mm, inputs that you have to inject into that business. That means for the same amount of input, a business is able to generate greater outcome, or it is able to get the same outcome using lower amount of inputs than before. That is fundamentally idea of productivity and character of a business, or more in a simple way, character of the rate of growth. Therefore, all investing is really simple. Basically, you have to find businesses of character, which have ability to become more valuable over a period of time than when you acquire them today. That it must be run by people of integrity, vision, competence, and capability, so that character of business converts into good outcome. Such a business must have large size of opportunity so that it can grow. That growth gives compounding power. Compounding is enhanced and accelerated when the quality of growth is superior. And art and the science of investing is ability to judge and make meaningful prediction about all of this. That what is the character of this management, whether we can trust? What is the innards of this business, whether we can really go into the depth of it and can comprehend? Whether such a business can do it not for a short period but long period. Whether it has large enough size of opportunity so that it can grow meaningfully. Whether the quality of growth is such that the outcomes can be enhanced. And then when you make series of these judgments, some looking like mathematics and science, other looking like art, when you put it into a pot boiler, into the crucible where you are heating all of these components together, what you get as an outcome is a judgment about real value of a business. That is important finality of an investing activity, to find the value of a business, not price. Price is something that you know. Markets tell you price moment to moment. It's a mathematical certainty. It is judging the value of a business which is the most critical part, the finality. Because stock prices eventually are slaves of that value. Time to time, prices may be ahead of the value, where prices tend to be higher than what value really is. And therefore, such high prices compared to value eventually will decline. Sometimes prices are below the value. That means they deserve to be better, but they are below, and therefore eventually at some stage they will rise. The character and the logic of the business will decide value. Prices are defined not only by that character and logic, but also by prevalent sentiments and emotions at a point of time. These emotions, these sentiments make prices deviate from the real value. When sentiments are positive, prices tend to ride above the value. But actually that is the danger, because eventually then those prices have to come down. And time to time, when there is a pessimism, despotism, like when COVID came about, the markets went completely bonkers in a matter of just a few days. Prices went way below where they deserve to be on a long-term consideration. And therefore, judging value, discovering value, refining the judgment of value time and again, it's not a mathematical number, it's a judgment. It's an intelligent conjecture, a wise opinion, not a mathematical expression. And when you are able to do that, when your investing craft is good, you make many more such good judgments rather than not so good ones. The art of probability. That is where the investing really rests. All these are simple. That you want to find a good business, you want to ensure it is run by people of character, that a business must have large enough opportunity size so that it can grow. Growth creates compounding. Superior quality of growth will create accelerated compounding. And all that put together gives a judgment and opinion of value. And value is where prices are driven, because prices are eventually servants. Values are master, but occasionally servants behave badly. Occasionally they are ill-behaved, and therefore price runs ahead of the value rather than where value is. And therefore, if we have a judgment of value, it gives us confidence to invest, not getting carried away by the market behavior or market machination. Therefore, investing is simple, but never easy. And 2, 3 things why it is so difficult. First, investing is hugely about future. More than 95% of investing is about future and not about the past. But Homo sapiens, humans have evolved and have survived by and large, dwelling more upon the past or dealing with the present rather than judging the future. But investing is hugely about judging the future. And therefore, it doesn't come automatically to most of the Homo sapiens. It's not a matter of intellect. It's a matter of how our brains are hardwired as Homo sapiens. As Homo sapiens, hardwired, even very high intellect, fundamentally is evolved to deal with to dwell in the past and deal with the present, while investing calls for dealing or conjecturing the future. The second very difficult thing about investing is an ability to hold two contrary emotions simultaneously in your head without making your mind go mincemeat, or without kind of making mind go haywire, and without an ability to hold two seemingly contrary emotions simultaneously in your head and yet not losing your sanity is one of the most important defining capabilities of investing. That you trust, but you also doubt. That you have belief, but you also have skepticism. That you have confidence, but also you have worries. That you have basic judgment about something, but at the same time you keep trying to check whether it is right or not, whether there is some weakness, whether there is some infirmity. This is a fundamental, very powerful investment trait. Without that, investing is not possible. The other one, which is again very difficult about investing, is that most of the things which are valuable about investing and which are powerful ideas about investing mostly tend to be intangibles, more intangibles rather than tangibles. Price is a tangible number, but its value that we judge is an inference. Profit that a business makes, if it is honestly stated and honestly computed, is a number and a reality. But judgment of the value is again a conjecture. Returns that a particular investment or a particular portfolio has earned in a particular period is a number which is a reality. but judging the risk which has been undertaken in order to earn those returns requires a lot of conjecturing, a lot of understanding. Mathematics is a certainty. Art is a science of possibility. And therefore, investing most of the things is about most of the investing is really about intangibles. And again, Homo sapiens is a survival mechanism, is a tool to adapt to the risk in the environment around, by and large, prefers the tangibility rather than intangibility, which sounds threatening. Finally, investing is about long term, and it is not about short term. And unfortunately, humans, again as a survival tool, as a mechanism, is more engaged in day to day, moment to moment, in terms of trying to protect oneself or protect one's skills or thrive, but is not really think through the issues in a long-term way. And investing is nothing if it is not long. But the great part of investing is, if you don't treat it as a gambling device, if you understand what good investing is all about, if you can find out good businesses which will have potential to create value, if you're disciplined to do all of these, not one time, but time after time, and if you have wisdom to realize that market volatility is a permanent fact, but it is not a threat. Markets were volatile 3 centuries back, 2 centuries back, last century, last decade, last year, this year, next decade, next century. Market volatility is a permanent feature. Price volatility and violence is a permanent feature of the markets. When you recognize that, it no longer is actually a threat that most people regard it as. But when you judge its value of an individual business, and when you judge overall market, that markets will behave like this, then actually that knowledge, that recognition applied with discipline is actually an opportunity and not a threat. Therefore, again, when I talked about that meditational calm, that spirituality, philosophical viewing of the bystander, all these are important attributes and important branches of knowledge that you study in order to calm down your mind, in order to ensure that your mind is focused on the end game rather than tactics. Therefore, when you do all of that, when you focus on good business and only on good business, on good management and only on good management, judge their innards, judge their long-term gain, judge the kind of all the critical parameters that go behind it, and act with discipline and act with wisdom. I can assure you, there is no way on earth over a fair period of time you cannot not make money from investing and cannot not build wealth out of investing. All it requires is discipline of good habits, compounded and sustained over time, and done time after time after time, and having patience and wisdom to realize the gain. When you do that, investing is actually far more a game of a skill and very, very little game of a chance. Finally, markets. Markets have no duty towards you. Markets have no obligation to make you rich or wealthy simply because you invest into markets. Markets are actually designed to make you fail. Markets try to trap you into your weak spots. What are your weak spots? You get worried by volatility and it plays on your psychology. That something may be good in the long run, but in a short run, price may behave otherwise and can create a deception, a chal, a kind of a trap. That when prices, even of perfectly terrible stocks, go up, it gratifies your heart and makes you feel unwisely confident, and therefore then traps you into taking further bad actions or not disengaging from those bad actions and then eventually kind of suffering badly from that. More than 95 out of 100 participants in the market, unfortunately, go with this description. And therefore, more than 95 out of 100 participants psychologically, fundamental temperament-wise, fundamental capabilities and skills-wise, are simply not equipped to handle the game of investing, the game of markets. And therefore, if you play the game of Russian roulette or game of chance or throwing a dart, more than 95% chances or probabilities of a failure or mediocrity. And that's a terrible game to play. Any game with at least 51% probability of success, it's simply not worth playing. And 51 itself is a low number. Therefore, you have to improve that chance to much higher. Then only you can play the game. Therefore, markets are not designed to gratify you. But investing is about postponement of gratification. Investing is basically about laying out money today in order to hope and get bigger money tomorrow. That postponing gratification today to future in the hope and belief of getting larger one is what investing is all about. And that larger one tomorrow than what you paid out today for is the returns that you earn over a period of time. And therefore, psychologically, ability to postpone that gratification without getting unnerved by shrinkage and expansion of that gratification over a period of time, is a fundamentally great capability that you need to develop in your mind over a period of time. Without that, unfortunately, markets are designed to make a mincemeat out of you rather than benefit you. But the good part is, if you don't treat it as a gambling device, if you have a long-term, if you understand what you're doing, if you play by the rules of the game, if you remain disciplined, and most importantly, more than intellect, more than anything else, you play by wisdom, then I can assure you there is no way over a period of time one simply cannot lose money in investing, and one can never fail to build wealth in good investing. If that is a fundamentally, a probabilistically, very, very high probabilistic outcome, which has to be attained. That is the power of investing. And I believe we as a country, we as a society, we as businesses today, more than ever before, are at a threshold of creating that kind of outsized outcomes today. As a country, we are at the cusp of, in my opinion, one of the greatest periods of expansion ahead. In last 5, 6, 7 years, especially, a lot of good things have been done. They may not always look that way to the people who are observing it from outside. And individually, each point may not look very clear to a lot of people unless they build the latest work of all those ideas together. And therefore, a lot of time people are carried away by each individual narrowness rather than grand, larger picture and the reason. But I think in last 6, 7, 8 years, fundamentally many powerful forces in economy and in society have been unleashed. When you combine all of this, we are at the cusp of an opportunity where our economy, not only in terms of the rate of growth, but in terms of quality of growth, sustainability, predictability, durability, is at a threshold of one of the greatest economic expansions compared to our own history, and in my opinion, compared to the global other such powerful expansions. That in turn will benefit high quality and character-based businesses, not all businesses, not everything, but character-based and high-quality business, which in turn will allow quality entrepreneurs, honest entrepreneurs to build lifetime of wealth, and investors who are patient, wise, long-term, and disciplined, in my opinion, will create a value and wealth of a kind which at no probably point in the past or the period in the past has happened. I'm in investing now for 30 to 33 years. And skepticism is a very important device, as a self-protection device, as a survival tool in investing. I talked about that. Therefore, in 30 to 33 years, one should be a die-hard skeptic. Because that is a very strong tool for surviving and hopefully prospering. But today, in 30 to 33 years of investing, I am actually hugely optimistic about the future of this country, her economy, her quality businesses, her quality entrepreneurs, and quality investors. I think it is a lifetime of opportunity, and not for a short period of 2 or 3 or 5 years, but 10 years and 20 years is what I believe. So if I have to borrow from Buffett, somebody whom I admire definitely, Warren Buffett, I feel like a kid in a candy shop. That is the kind of optimism I feel about the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would make just a half a minute comment or 1 minute comment. I think these were excellent pearls of wisdom of investment. And if we, or some of us who really want to understand the principles or the qualitative principles of investment, must listen to this talk at least 4, 5, 6, 7 times, how we sometimes read a good book 3, 4, 5 times. And that is where we will imbibe some fundamental qualitative principles of investments. Of course, to a very common average person, it may not look like everything given on a platter, but that is not what was the objective of this talk also. I would strongly recommend that we must listen to this talk 3, 4 times if we really want to understand the qualitative principles of investment. And if I give the analogy of a good surgeon or the psychology of a good surgeon, supposing one of us has to operate on a VVIP patient, say, for example, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's eyes or Mukesh Ambani's eyes, or or any VIP's eyes, it doesn't require only the technology, it requires a tremendous psychology of becoming a good surgeon, and which I many times talk. And this is a similar analogy that if you want to be a good investor, it requires a lot of psychology of a good investor apart from the technical part of investment. And with this, I once again thank you, Bharat Bhai, thank you very much. And we have some 5-10 minutes of time to answer some questions, maybe to I don't know, Trupti is coordinating. Or thank you once again.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. We have 2 questions from the audience. The very first question is like, will investing in equity linked mutual funds will reduce risk in new corners as compared to investing in direct equities?
No, I think I answered it earlier. There are many things which are required for success in investing. If those attributes and those traits you can bring about yourself, then certainly you should do it yourself. But if you think as those traits are difficulty for you to muster, and it's not a question of only about intellect. Intellect allows facts and data into knowledge. Your innate intensity and focus basically be at it kind of an attitude converts that knowledge into a kind of actionable outcomes. And it is the wisdom which allows those sustainable outcomes into compounding mega force. Therefore, intellect, knowledge, discipline, and wisdom, that is the continuum that you have to walk. If you think you have all it takes to do it, and the time at hand and passion, without passion, investing is a very cruel profession. So if you have all of that, then you must do it yourself. If you think you can't do it, then you have to find somebody who can do it for you, whether it is a mutual fund, whether it is somebody else or a PMS or whoever, an advisor, but that is what it goes.
Thank you, sir. The next question is like, how can we have access to your yearly articles and books? When is the next edition of your seminal book expected?
Every Diwali I come up with one. So last 15 years I've been doing it every Diwali.
As per your talks today, it was more of a, how to create legacy portfolios. I should, in short, summarize like this.
Yes, I believe it is a duty of everyone in managing wealth, building wealth, and compounding wealth. Is a trusteeship responsibility of everyone. You don't have a choice. Even for your own money or your wealth, you do not have a choice. Procrastination comes to human race very easily. Taking difficult or not taking more complex decisions again results in procrastination by people, because people want to put off choices. But there is no getting away from that. We all have to be trustee of our own money. And I regard my own investing into fundamentally from that standpoint. Of course, good investing leads to making good money. It leads to good wealth. All of these are important in itself. But fundamentally, they are still, in my opinion, byproducts. God has been kind, and income and wealth are valuable. But I think the end purpose of investing is much larger. The knowledge it gives, sense of gratification it provides, sense of fulfillment it gives when you do it right and play by the right rules and the right rules of the game. When you fulfill the aspirations and desires of the people who trust you on that over a period of time, and the kind of sense of intellectual victory that you attain when you deal with the minds of the market and attain right outcomes, all these are far larger causes to my mind. And the sheer I would say happiness that it gives. Ultimately, end purpose of all of this is not merely wealth. Wealth is only means to an end and not an end in itself. And I think investing truly well practiced, good investing leads to, in my opinion, a very tempered and very, so to say, meditative, very calm, and hopefully, a mind which is happy. And I think that, to my mind, is the end purpose of investing.
Bharat,
Therefore, when we manage it for others, I think of it the same way.
I can add one more last point, that we must make a lot of wealth, not only for ourselves and our family, but if we still make more wealth, it is going to be useful to the society and to the country and to this world. And that multiplies the happiness of what you talked.
Kulin Bhai is one of the greatest symbols of that all the time. I've seen it over a period of time, how relentless and etic kind of a person he is about his social cause and commitment to that. Never, day in, day out, Sundays, holidays, every stage, even personal family, health and other challenges. But I've seen the same calm, composed commitment to that cause. So something truly admirable.
Yes, really so.
So, a small question. What would be your advice for the novices now and who are, it's a learning curve and it's more of a kind of, means you learn through your mistakes, what I'm trying to say. So what would be your advice for the novices here?
Begin early as you can. Realize the end game rather than interim stops, and do the right things, because bad habits compound, good ones compound too. So not only you have to begin early, be aware of the end game, but you have to do right as well. The pebbles, stones stored for long term don't become diamonds. They must have inherently they must be diamonds for them to become superior products over long run. Therefore, you need long term as well as you need the right things to make it happen.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Kulin Bhai?
Yeah, I think somebody can conclude. I once again thank Bharat Bhai, of course, and normally somebody can propose a vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very, very nice. In fact, one of the most wise lectures which I've heard on investment, asset allocation and all. Definitely, as Dr. Kulin Bhai has said, people have to go through this video again and again to really get the nuances of what you have just said, Bharat Bhai. We are really indebted. Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society definitely got a diamond in you, who has given us a very good insight into this subject. Thanks, Dr. Kulin Bhai, for getting Bharat Bhai to this platform. And I think we'll have much more of you, sir, as we have a series of lectures going on. If you can devote more time for us, we'll be glad to have you later in the series. Thanks, Trupti, for doing the great moderation today. In spite of your busy schedule, her husband is not keeping well. In spite of that, she has taken this challenge and she is very much here. Kulin Bhai, sir, as usual, is always behind me as the backbone of this financial committee, MOS Financial Committee. And the Entort people, of course, they're always there on the Sunday to help us the technical glitches here. So a big thank you. The audience also who have joined on this Sunday morning. Definitely, there is a lot to learn from this topic. Thank you very much, all of you, sir, everybody for joining this, and we'll definitely have the series going on further. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And Kulin Bhai, a request, when you have, if you can forward me the recording of this also, I'll much appreciate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah, I will do the needful. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bharat, once again.
एक minute. Sir, gallery view photo, because this will be a nostalgic for each one of us. And then we have a short video of the entered people, because they are the ones who are helped us out. So just bear with us for about a minute or so, sir.
So I'll just remain on the screen, right? I have
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, yeah. Gallery view लइए sir. एक photo रहिए हमारे भाई हमारा भरत भाई साथे भी हमारी meeting थी.
Bharat Bhai, Jignesh is the president of Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society, and he is a very dynamic. He makes everybody work, including me. And he has made you work on a Sunday morning.
He keeps everyone on the toes.
But unfortunately, that 9 p.m. time, because people they've stopped practicing at 9 and 9:30, but that is very unusual time. That's why we had to Sunday morning, of course, is a better time in general. Of course,
Bharat bhai, do you have timing at night if you can spare? Because that is the time we'll have maximum audience also. Sundays,
No,
everybody does. They have the only one Sunday to move around. The doctors are so busy, na. So, जो तुम्हें time काढो, so we can have more of you.
At about 9:30, 10, but that typically interferes with my reading time. That's why I'm not in, because I read an average of 6 to 7 hours a day.
Okay.
And the time that I plan out, I typically try not to dilute that.
yeah. So Jignesh, Bharat Bhai is a very different personality and person to know about him. And the technical and non-technical knowledge he has, the library he has, and we share a lot of common passion between two of us. I also like to read about on various subjects and learn from people like him. Yeah. So
It was like a book which has he covered in that 1 hour. Lots of tips and tricks. People should really go ahead and do. And definitely we'll be sharing the recording.
Not many people, but we understand. But the psychology is so important in anything, and all of us will understand psychology of a good surgeon. I can talk for 2-3 hours only on the psychology of a good surgeon. Supposing you are operating, is this being recorded? Otherwise, okay, I will not give some.
Recording
We have operated top families whom we just talked about, and Sawmill has also operated, and it requires a very different temperament of when you operate on a VIP patients, who are internationally popular people, without giving the names, I can tell you. And same way, the psychology is very, very important in investment. Or psychology is important in every field or every walk of life. People don't understand that. Psychology, and I'm a student of psychology myself. So it is applicable when we talk to our patients, when we talk to our family members, when we talk to our friends. It's everywhere. Psychology, and in second thing, in my opinion, the communication skills are very important in life. And communication skill, I don't mean that grammatically correct Gujarati or English or Hindi language. It is the right body language, the right tone, right. Every single thing is so important in talking. And few things in life are very, even in so-called educated people, it's lacking. Even in amongst our doctors is lacking very, very badly.
Sir, his topic was so interesting, and the way he put it across. As I just told you in the beginning of the lecture, I was supposed to go to another. I have been invited. I dropped that thing totally. So I was so engrossed with this. So that is how the communication is, how a person grabs your attention and how you go about it. So nice of you, sir.
Photograph is taken already?
Nice, sir. 1 minute, आपको अजी video अपने जरा रमिए, please.
We have got a message.
Yeah, we have got the gallery view photo. Just be with us for a minute more.
Okay. When you tell us, because lunch may be ready for many of us.
Yet to go.
I have
you
one
very
last
much.
question. Is Entod a public limited company?
Sorry.
Is Entod a public limited company? A general question.
You're asking me?
No,
તમને
to Entod people or it's a privately held, I believe. Anyway, the way they showed the video, I mean, if it's a good, we can buy shares of Entod if it is public limited.
They are coming with a lot of innovative products, sir. Kinocan and also it was so nicely marketed also, and of course the product itself is very good. So we thoroughly, sir. So thanks a lot once
Thank
more.
you so much. Thank you.
Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Bharat bhai, thank you once
Okay.
again.
Thank you, sir, for your wisdom and your words. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jignesh sir. Thank you,
Avjo.
sir.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'll just ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Trupti, आप रहो एक minute.
अच्छा.
I'll just ask. भाई अनमोल, हेड काउंट बाद में अपने ग्रुप में डालना भाई.